Hey guys, we're here with Coach Janell Crayton. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I can't complain. The season's on the way, so I'm very, very excited.
Absolutely.
Um, so when did you realize basketball and coaching was something you wanted to do for a long time?
I kind of have two times. One is I got the really special opportunity while I was still in college to do a summer internship out of the country. Uh, you know, I went to a small liberal arts school for college, and everybody did study abroad. Like something like 70% of students did study abroad. But I was a basketball player, so it's over both semesters, so there's no study abroad. You can't go in the winter because that's half the season, and you can't go in the fall or the spring because you're gonna miss half the season. So I got to go in the summer. I got to go to Ghana, West Africa, and part of my time there, I was a teacher at an all girls school, and I taught PE, and I taught them all how to play basketball.
Mhm.
And I would have about 30 kids, outdoor concrete court, egg shaped rim, about five basketballs, and I just had to like figure it out. And I had so much fun with that experience. The young ladies were so eager, so excited, gave their all, even in the 95-degree hot sun in the middle of the day. And I just really learned that the game is amazing and fun, but it really can lead to so much more. It can bring about confidence and joy and, some real empowerment. And so that was when I was like, okay, I think I want to do this. And then I had the opportunity right out of college to be a volunteer coach for a year at a Division 3 school in Atlanta, and it was incredible. I loved it. And after doing that on a volunteer basis for a season, I went on a nationwide search to do it full time.
You mentioned your time at Ghana. Time has passed since then. We learned through experience and through time. Um, if you can go back in time, you know, and tell yourself back then
Mhm,
one thing that you thought was important to teach those kids,
mhm.
what would it be?
To take this, even if it was in passing, if they enjoyed it, to take it seriously because it could give them an opportunity that would change their life.
Mhm.
Um, it honestly gave me being there was an opportunity that changed my life. And so for them taking that opportunity to learn a little bit about this game, if they knew some already, if it was something that they cared about, to stay with it because it could lead to something way bigger. And I don't think people understand that. And yes, sometimes those things are a long shot, but I do believe you're meant to be where you're meant to be. And so when I was doing it, I think that a lot of the young ladies took it seriously, and that is what drove me. But some of them didn't, and just for them to know that there's so many opportunities beyond maybe some of the things that they had seen so far in their lives.
Maya Moore, Diamond and Shields, Tasha Butts, um, Leisha Milton, Georgia natives, Atlanta natives. You're a
Hmm.
Georgia native, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
All right. If you were to use one word to describe a Georgia basketball player, what would it be and why?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I'd say, when you talk about those individuals, I would say, they were all and they are all extremely dynamic. One thing that I appreciated so much in my formative years playing basketball in Georgia was that there was talent at all levels, from the small private schools to at some point, I think there were 7As, like there was 5,000, student high schools. All through those ranks, there was talent, and talent um, that could that would then perform, at the next level. And so I think that because of that, it wasn't wasn't divvied out in the same way. Like you had to come to play regardless. Like if you were in a tournament and you were playing teams that were, not in the same division or whatever, like you had to come to play regardless because at every single level, the teams were great. Chrissy Thomas, who's from a little farther back, and she played at the LA Sparks. She went to a 2A school. You know what I mean? She went to a smaller high school, and when she was in school, that was one of the best high schools in the state, regardless of size. Sherelle Baker, who is a coach now, and she played in WNBA. She went to like a 3A school. You know what I mean? And so throughout the levels, there was this competition, and so to kind of really stand out in all of that, you had to really be dynamic.
If you were to use one word to describe your coaching style, what would it be and why?
My coaching style, I would say that my coaching style is a lot more, I want to say mellow. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm really more of I'm trying to give you information. I'm not a screamer. I really believe that we are, giving these young ladies a vehicle that can help propel them to life, and to do many things. And I want to teach them how to be young adults. And they always come in saying they're grown. And the way I see it is, if you are in fact grown, then I should not have to scream at you. I shouldn't have to curse at you. We should be able to have conversation. We should be able to talk like adults, and you should be able to execute the things I'm saying to you without me losing my mind. Now, sometimes you have to lose your mind. It's just a thing. And I think that happens in all walks of life and at all levels of professionalism. But for me, I'm really more mellow. I'm really more of an intellectual coach. Like, I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing. Tell me why you're doing that. I'm going to tell you why I need you to do something different.
So you said you played at Davidson, correct? Give me a positive or a negative in regards to when you played versus now. Because I mean, obviously you're a coach, you're a former player, you've been on both sides of it, whether it be a work ethic thing, maybe it's a resource thing, maybe it's anything. So just give me one positive thing or one negative thing that really affects the product of that.
I think one thing, positive or negative, that's difficult, I'll say, because I
Give me
think
a couple if you want, whatever works.
people can argue both, right? But I think one thing that is negative, I would say in part, is the transfer portal. I don't think it's negative all on its own. I think that there are a good amount of situations where people need an opportunity to do something different than what they've done. But I think that the existence of it doesn't necessarily force people to enter into this decision with the same amount of commitment, because they feel like they can exit it. And so, for me, when I went to school, it was like, this is where you're going. This is where you've chosen through ups and downs, good, bad, and ugly. This is where you're going. You know what I mean? Like, this is where you're going to be. And, I feel like, barring abuse, that's college. That's college basketball. It's not going to always be easy. You're not going to always get your way. It's going to be hard. It's going to be literally sometimes painful. Like, your body's going to hurt. You know what I mean? It's going to be tiring, but that is what sets you apart. If you're a Division I athlete, that literally sets you apart. You're a 1%er. And so those type of distinctions mean that there comes some sacrifice with it. And so sometimes I feel like, that the transfer portal is great when, when coaches leave, kids feel like they should be able to as well, because it's not the same people. I get that. I understand that. Right. And when there's instances where people are just truly being treated poorly, I get that. and I think that people should have opportunities. But I feel like sometimes we're missing the boat with it's hard and people are jumping in the transfer portal because college athletics is is hard. Nobody else that's in college, that's in a club or anything like that, they're not, if they don't like that club, if that club makes them tired and makes their body hurt and they got to get up early and they not doing well in it, they'll quit. You know what I mean? Like they don't come back to it. That's what makes what we do different. That's what makes what these student athletes do different. And so I think sometimes people miss the boat and are like, this is hard, I want to leave. And sometimes the hard is really part of it. And people should kind of sink into that a little bit more. I think one thing that is, you know, a pretty good thing and there's people who I even now work with who experience this and I didn't, is the cost of attendance, and that being something that some people really can use and really need, and something that some people use in a really good way, and help them leave school with things that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise.
Like you mentioned earlier, your first big break, Division 3, I think at Oglethorpe or Oberlin or
So Oglethorpe was where I was a volunteer coach, and then my first full time was Oberlin.
Mhm, mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So you had those two places, highly successful. I know you beat a couple top 20 teams in America while you were there.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached Division 3 as
Mm-hmm.
well. There's a gap in resources.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Most Division 3 programs, Division 2 programs, maybe you have the head coaching, maybe one assistant at
Mm-hmm.
most two.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the assistant coaches are really grads, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just different. In
Right.
a person, you can't really get to be as hands-on with your players, full time like you could, at a Division 1 level. But yet you guys are very successful in that manner. So um how did you make it work? And one important thing you learned during that time that has helped you get to the point you're at right now in your career.
Mm-hmm. I think at Oglethorpe, that's where we were really successful. At Oglethorpe, I kind of came into it, and there's a couple things that I learned that were that ended up making us really, really successful. One was that I feel like I learned this just being able to be around a Division 3 program in general, is that Division 3 does not mean bad basketball player. Really, at the end of the day, for my experience at Oglethorpe, Division 3 meant maybe a shortage or lack of some God givens. So not as tall, not as fast, but it did not have anything to do with skill, and definitely nothing to do with heart. And so that is what I learned. And that was why I think we were so successful, is because the head coach understood, okay, maybe she's undersized, but she goes hard. She has moves. She rebounds. Okay, maybe she's not as quick, but she can score. Like they can't figure out how to stop it, even if it's slow. Like maybe she's not as tall, not as quick, but she's not missing a three. And he would kind of just pick out those players that had gotten overlooked, but if you sat down and watched, they had everything in their arsenal basketball wise. And I think that also ties into what I learned at Division 3, was that really an understanding of that there are 3 divisions in NCAA, let alone NAIA. There's a lot of college basketball being played, and even at the Division 1 level now, and even as a head coach now, I always respect all of the divisions. I always really dislike when maybe AAU coaches or high school coaches frown upon or don't give student athletes access to Division 2 or Division 3 coaches, because not everybody's Division 1, and that is okay. Like that's okay. And sometimes I think there are coaches that are helping these young ladies that are steering them in the wrong way. They're steering them where they're maybe not going to end up being as successful or as happy. And they would be far more successful and have a far greater experience if they had been given access or more knowledge about Division II or Division III. It's not bad basketball. Doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean, any of those things. It's great. It's some great basketball that is being played in those divisions. And they really, some people really, really prosper there, but would really prosper there, but get pushed in a different direction just so they can say, whatever. The other thing, I will always, always, always be very, very grateful for my time in Division III, because I think it gave me access to doing everything. Like you said, there's not very many resources and not a bunch of coaches. So by the time I finished basically my first 4 years in coaching, I had done travel, I'd done recruiting, I'd been an interim head coach for a period of time, which means I had signed players. I had made sure, they had gone through the academic process. I had been an academic advisor. I swept the floor. I did, the travel. I had done so many things. And sometimes when people go directly into Division I, they're pigeonholed. And by the time they get through several years, there's a bunch of things they've never touched. And so with my time at Division III, I really felt like I had done it, a little bit of everything already. And that was such a benefit.
Your next stop, Colgate,
Mhm.
Patriot League.
Mhm.
So you're not necessarily a Princeton or a
Mhm.
Penn, but you're still a very high academic school, and
Yes.
the Patriot League division is very good.
Yeah.
Oh no, you've got
Yes.
the Bucknells, the Lehigh.
Lehigh's.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're good. Like they're
Yeah.
top level in that. They're good. Like they're really,
Yes.
really good. Tell me about your time there, and kind of like I've always been intrigued in the fact of like Ivy Leagues and Patriot League teams, because like you could fall in love with a player, but if they don't have the grades, they can't go to Colgate. They can't go
Mhm.
to Bucknell. So
Right.
it's kind of limiting, for lack of better terms, limiting your pool
Mhm.
a bit. So just tell me about your time there and what type of kid you think thrived in the Patriot League and how you guys made it work.
Mhm. My time there was great. It's cold. It's really cold and
Hamilton is cold. It is cold. So yes, I've been to Hamilton. Hamilton is cold. But yeah, go ahead.
it's really cold. It's
Yeah,
really cold.
yeah.
But I got some really awesome friends from there, so that's really cool. I think that while it is limiting, it's also just makes you be a little bit more precise and efficient with your recruiting. Their league, you have the Catholic School League in DC. It's great basketball, high academic high schools. You know what I mean? You just kind of have to know where to look in the different regions. One thing about a Colgate, one thing about a Patriot League school in a lot of ways is that while they are in the Northeast, um, they pull from the whole country, because people who know. And if you know, then you understand the kind of education you're about to get, and you'll come from anywhere, like you'll come from Georgia. If you go to certain schools, you'll know what a Bucknell is, you'll know what a Colgate is. Um, you'll come from a California, because if you're in certain environments, you'll know what those places are. You'll know what a Lehigh is. And then when you talk about around the area in that Northeast in general, they know, and there are people that aspire to be in those places that are basketball players. And it especially like in the Patriot League, that's honestly like the best of both worlds, because you're getting full rides. And I think Ivy might have changed, but prior to, Ivy was not giving out athletic scholarship. So you were still paying something, you know. I think that might have changed recently, but prior to that, you're talking about some of the top schools in the country, and you're getting a full academic ride. And so, some people think it's limiting, and I always just thought you just had to be a little bit more efficient with what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As a coach, what are your non-negotiables?
Um, I would say that my non-negotiables are um my real non-negotiables, like as a coach, really a lot of times initially center around academics. And you understanding that that reflects basketball. So if you can't take care of business in the classroom, I can't trust you on the court. If you can't show up to class on time, I can't trust you on the court. And so some of my non-negotiables start with academics. I always tell people, your grade point average is something I cannot save you from. Like I can maybe help you with other things, other elements, but I cannot save you from your GPA. And the NCAA has rules, and it don't matter. It don't matter. Like if it is what it is, and then after that, I can't save you. I can't do anything to help you. And so that's why I think that becomes one of my big non-negotiables, because it directly affects your even ability to be on the court. Another non-negotiable for me is respect. You know, I understand that, especially this day and age, these young men and women, they like to be kind of given a why at times. It helps them understand things better. But at the end of the day, I'm the coach, and I'm not one to go back and forth. I'm not one to tolerate disrespect in that way. And then also, you know, I don't want to coach your effort. There's too many other things to coach. Like there's too much other stuff I'm trying to put in, trying to tell you where to be. Too much other stuff for me to try and coach you to give effort as well. And so for me, I think that's a non-negotiable. But for me, it's one that, um, while I might not yell and scream about it, I'm very observant of it, and it usually just kind of fades you out of the picture for me.
You then went on to coach at William and Mary and UNC Asheville, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
Tell me your time there, because I've heard Asheville's a beautiful campus.
Oh,
Obviously, William and Mary is,
yes,
awesome as well. But I've heard
yes,
nothing but good things about Asheville. So
yes.
I guess just tell me about your time there.
My time at Asheville was priceless. I worked under Brenda Mock Brown. Now it was Brenda Mock Kirkpatrick, who is the newest head coach at East Tennessee State University, and she is dynamic. She's awesome. I got to be her recruiting coordinator for her first 3 years at Asheville, and it was tough. We had some hard times because we were not very good to start off with, but I learned so much. She was a great teacher by experience. She hit the ground running, so I had to hit the ground trying to catch her, trying to follow her. And I think that she, like, every year she really grew, and which made me grow. Every year the program grew, which made me grow. And working under her, working with Honey Brown, who is now the current head coach at UNC Asheville, working with Honey Brown, I learned so much. Honey, I think the thing I learned from Honey the most is just how to work. Like Honey just never complained. She was always willing to pick up the slack, just whatever. I remember she and I had the room together on the road, and I remember one night I was trying to cut up film, and it was like 12:30, and I was at the very end of doing what I was supposed to do, and the whole thing crashed. Just lost hours of work, and it's now 12:30, and we have to get up next morning. I think we have to watch film at like 7 a.m. or something crazy. And I was like, I freaked out, and then I was like, I have to start over. Like I have to start over and do all of this again. And I never forget, she didn't say a word, but Honey didn't go to sleep. Like she didn't fall asleep. Like it was like when you're driving and the person stays up at night with you. She just stayed up with me. And there's one computer, it wasn't really a way for her to help me finish the work. There was nothing she could do to help me per se, but she just kind of stayed awake,
Just kept
like
you
it's
going.
moral support.
Kept you going.
And that's something little, but she was always that kind of person. She was willing to do anything for you, for the kids. And Coach Mock was just the type of person who poured into you at every level. I was new to the recruiting position. And I remember after our first summer, and I was a recruiting coordinator, she called me, and there wasn't malice in her voice. She wasn't mad, but she ran down about 15 things that I needed to do different. And I was like, okay, it didn't elicit any defensiveness because she was so, you could tell she cared and she just wanted to make me better, to make us better, you know. She would ask all the questions and I would be wide-eyed, like, oh my God, I don't know. But then next time we had a meeting, I knew everything, and so like that's the way she taught me. And it was great. I came away with a better understanding of how to do that job as a recruiting coordinator, but then also just how to grind it out through the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs, to care about the people that you're working with and for. And then at the end of the day, it'll all turn out well. And it did.
Next experience, Hampton,
Mm-hmm.
HBCU. I
Yeah.
went to HBCU
Where,
myself,
where did you go?
Lincoln,
Yes, yes.
Pennsylvania. So
Strong women's basketball program.
very,
Yes,
they won the CIAA last year, and
yes.
their former head coach, actually is the associate head coach now at Arizona State.
Arizona State, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
So
he's dynamic. Yeah.
yeah, very good program, very good program. We could talk about them all day. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
HBCU, Hampton, 3 good seasons there.
Mm-hmm.
Highly successful
Mm-hmm.
NCAA tournament run.
Mm-hmm.
How do you sustain success?
That's a better question for the head coach there, Coach Six. But the way we sustain success is there were ways in which he did things, and he just did it every day. Like to me, there were things that you didn't always want to do. Like we practiced like every day for 3 hours, every day, every day. It didn't matter. Every day we're gonna be there 3 hours every day, just every day. We'd be like, I feel like we should be done. Nope, every day. And I'm not saying 3 hours equals success, but for he knew for his teams at Hampton, that's what it took. Like that's what it's gonna take. We did this certain defensive rotation drill. We did it every day. We did it every day, every single day. And it would just be like defensive rotation. Well, get into it every day, every day, every day, every day. And so I think for me, that's what it started to be. It was like a consistency. Even if it was one or two things, even if it was just something little, like that consistency of it is what turned into success. And that's what it looked like. We played hard. I mean, those girls played so hard. And that I think part of that I think came from like this grind of 3 hours every day. Like they didn't know any other way when it came to game time. Like they didn't know anything else to do but like go 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 go. And if you go 3 hours every day, a game is like nothing. Like game is like this is easy. This is fun. And so they played so very hard, no matter what, every day, day in and day out. And so the NCAA run, that team won the conference tournament with the best player to ever play at Hampton, and potentially, if she had gotten to finish her year, the best player to ever play in the MEAC. She was 100 points away from the all-time scoring record, and she missed the last 10 games and the whole tournament. So she would have blown that record away. We didn't have her. We didn't have what would have been basically the freshman of the year at that time. We didn't have the starting point guard at that time. And halfway through the championship game, the 14 points and like 8 rebounds at halftime, all conference post player went down at halftime, and we won the championship. That was the team that won the championship. Like those 3 that I first named, they didn't play in the tournament at all.
Y'all were loaded.
Yeah, To some extent, but we also just had people who just like, it was like, I don't care. Like, I do not care who you are across from me. Like, I do not care. I am not, there's nothing you're gonna do to stop me, you know. And those of you that were not playing, it was next man up. It was, I'm playing because she can't play, I'm playing for her. You know what I mean? That's really how they looked at it, and they went so hard, and it was amazing. It was really amazing.
Mhm. You know, Coach Six is a very well respected guy.
Yes.
Um, you know, you had the opportunity to watch him, and obviously you talked about the consistency and things like
Mhm,
that. And I've learned that we learn a lot through observation and
mhm,
conversations with our coworkers and our
mhm,
mentors.
mhm.
So, is there anything in particular in regards to the discussion that you had with him that really like, oh, that's a light bulb clicking, or like, oh, he that really, I like that. Like, you
Mhm,
know, I'm gonna take that with me, or I don't like that. I'm not gonna use that. So,
mhm.
you know, or do you have those moments with him? Is there anything that you'd be open to sharing or anything like that?
You know, with me, with Coach Six, I think the light bulb that always came up with me is that he observed the game in such, I felt like, a high level way. And so in observing him, he I don't know if it was also what we did, but he could draw on a play that he felt would work that we hadn't gone over or run in like a month. And he would call it in a game. And it would, first of all, the girls would remember it, which always shocked me. I was like, I don't know how you guys remembered how to run that play, because they'd be like, "Do you?" I'd be like, "I'm sorry, I don't know." Because I don't, we haven't gone over that in a month. How would they know that? But he would pull on something like that right at the right time. And so my observation was with him was always how he could observe the game and be like, "Oh, we need this piece right now," you know? And that was really that was really just interesting to me. And then also, the thing I think I took from Coach Six is that that I really probably should continue to draw on even more as I move into this new um, coaching position as my second year is Coach Six, and he would tell you he he never he was never surprised and never acted surprised whenever we beat like a big team. We did it every year. Every year, Hampton would beat a big team, some like, SEC team or something like that every year. And he would never act surprised. And he would always say, like, I'm just as good a coach as them. Like, I'm just as good. And he really believed it. And I'm not saying he was wrong, because he really was, but just having that confidence really would always rub off on the players, because normally, you go into what are known as money games, and everybody's like, "Oh, they're better than us." And he was like, "Who? Not better than me. Not better than me. That I'm the best coach out here." And he would say that in the locker room, and you'd be like, "Okay, okay, yeah, let's go then." And so, and I know Coach Six, he's a New York guy. He felt that. That was not a bluff, you know what I mean? He was confident, but he had all of the things to back it up. And he backed it up over and over again.
Yeah, New Yorkers say it with their chest. They mean it. They always
Oh,
mean it. Lots of confidence.
not a flinch in it. Not a flinch. I'm not even gonna say where he's from, because I'm gonna say it wrong and he's gonna be so mad. So I can't remember. I want to say Brooklyn, but he's gonna be so mad if I'm wrong. So I'm not even gonna say. I don't know. I just know New York, and like legit New York. I know that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So your next job, you're going to be an assistant coach, and I don't want to mispronounce the school.
Kennesaw State.
Kennesaw State.
Hmm.
Kennesaw. You're there. Tell me about your time there.
I worked for a legend. Agnes Baronato coached 18 seasons at Georgia Tech, and then another decade at Pittsburgh, and then decided that she would come back to Kennesaw for a little while, back in Georgia. And she is just such a dynamic person. She's the type of person that her program is always going to be a big family, because she's one of 10. And so all she knows is big family. She has 5 kids. They become part of the family too. It's just one big family, and my time there was awesome. I started the job. I got the job during July in probably about the span of 4 hours. Um, and called my mom. My mom started screaming because that was back home for me. So I got to move back home, and my mom started screaming. And then 2 weeks, oh no, 2 weeks from them, but like 4 or 5 days into my starting the job, I got on a plane. We got on a plane and went to Italy for 10 days. So, it's not too shabby. That's a pretty
Not
good
too
way to
bad.
start.
Not too
Yeah, not
bad.
bad at all. Not bad at all. So, it was a great experience. Coach Bernardo is an amazing, amazing coach. She taught me a lot about how to take care of your program and your people. She's very much a people person, and she is a great motivator. She's a great basketball mind, but she's an even better, just like, she takes care of her people. They play for her because she becomes a second mom to everybody. And it's just wonderful. Her light shines so bright. And she texts me like 2 weeks ago, like, how you doing? What do what you thinking? How's it looking? And so I love just being in touch with her, and I know it will be for forever. But my time there was great. I got to go back home, got to be closer to my family. I got to experience working under Coach Bernardo, and working with two amazing individuals, and Khadijah Head and Alex Winchell, and they were great coaches, and some really great players too, who are still, some are still there, and I root for them from afar. But it was really a good time, and I was felt so blessed to get to go back home and really be close to my family.
Your next job, Bethune Cookman,
Mm-hmm.
following up a legend, Coach Lewis,
Mm-hmm.
highly successful program.
Mm-hmm.
I know the whys, I think, in my mind, but you tell me why it was an ideal spot for you at that point in your career.
Mm-hmm. I think that I had hit all the other spots. It was sort of the next, uh I guess it was kind of the next thing in the chain, but to be completely honest, I don't know that I was initially looking for it. It kind of presented itself, and I said, "You know what? I'm gonna pour I'm gonna pour myself into it, and I'm gonna try my hardest, and then when I try my hardest and when I do my best, I'm satisfied with the outcome." And so that's kind of how I looked at, pursuing this job. I went about it in a different way than I normally do. I was very close, tight-lipped about it. I told very few people, and really just kind of left it up to God to say, like, this is where you're supposed to be or not. Definitely following a legend. Um, and I think I've followed a legend in the best way you can, which is that I followed her after, in a way that was really separating of the two times of the program. Her last year, unfortunately, they didn't play at all. Like, her last year at Bethune Cookman, her last season, they didn't have a season. Um, and then that season was also their last season in slash not playing the MEAC. And so what I walked into was a highly successful program that had completely changed. And so while that was difficult, it's also, it took away some of the comparison, at least for myself, because it was completely different. The program had not played at all for a year, so there was a lot of people had left, and then this coaching staff had left, and then also we were moving into a completely different conference, so nobody had played any of these teams. Nobody had been to Arkansas Pine Bluff or to Mississippi Valley State. Like, it was all new, and so it was difficult. It was the first year was challenging, but I learned a lot. I was able to lean on my assistants quite a bit, and we learned a lot, and are just really excited about this year to come, because I think not only do we want things to be better, but we refuse for them to be how they were, you know. But we know that this is such a fun conference, such a good conference with such a parodied conference. You know, you got Jackson State who's holding it down at the top, but I think there's a lot of teams that are knocking on the door. And the difference between, you know, team number 2 and 3 and team number 7 and 8 is 2-3 wins. You know what I mean? 2-3, you know, goes the other way, and you got completely different lineups in that conference rankings. And so that is exciting. You know, it's exciting that, you know, while there's some historical precedent for where people have been, there's also, if you look at it, it could be that can all shift so quickly. And we believe that, you know, we have a team that can start making moves and shifting things in the conference.
So your first time head coach,
Yep.
happens fast.
Yes.
You have to develop a staff.
Yes.
So this question always interests me because it's just like, when you get the call, when you did the interview, did you already have a list of people in mind, or were you the type of person like, okay, I'm gonna call people and ask people who they like, or like I'm just gonna wait for the applications to flow in and then sift through those?
Mm-hmm.
Because every single coach is different. Certain people are just like, you know what? If I don't know them, if I don't have that personal relationship with them,
Right.
that's enough.
Right.
And then certain people are just like, that resume too good. Like this guy, this guy has so many contacts in this area, or
Right. Right.
you know, I think he's the man for the job.
Right. Right.
So, you know, in regards to your situation, what was your process?
My process was, I was pretty sure about I was very sure about one position. I was pretty sure who I wanted for another position, but I didn't know if they would want to or be able to take it. And then there was one spot that was wide open. And from there, I really more talked to people, got people that I knew, got suggestions and things like that. So it's a little bit of all of those things together. Um, I don't know. I think for me going forward, if I ever, you know, if I have, you know, the opportunity that I have to, you know, I have great staff, and at some point maybe people will poach them. But if that happens, then I have to hire again. I don't know if I'm someone who would sift through resumes. It's just um, for me, that's not going to be the determining factor. If that makes sense, you know, because they can just be made to look however you want, right? But what I know that in this position, and I know in this job and in this profession, you got to have some relationship. You got to have some chemistry. You got to have people who you can trust, who you can hang out with, whatever. And in that, you got to have people you know and trust that can vouch for them, you know. And so I think as I move forward, it's going to be similar to how it was already. There's people that I'll know, and then maybe there are people that I don't know, but I'm going to have people that I do know that can vouch for them.
Mhm. You worked at different levels, different places in America. You're at the HBCU level now. Um, I personally see, having went to one as well, I see and I know there's a gap in regards to resources
Mhm.
sometimes. Um, Honestly, are we given a fair chance? And what can we do to close the gap?
Um, I can't really speak to fair chance because everybody's kind of different. You know, all the schools are different. All schools in both situations, HBCUs and PWIs. Not all PWIs have all the money in the world either. And so, you know, that is what it is. But I think that if HBCUs are to close whatever gap we see there being, it's just going to have to be um, both a pride in the fact that institution is HBCU, but not a fear of it, you know. And it's also going to take those who understand the importance of a HBCU to give back, you know. What Power Fives and a lot of PWIs don't lack for is boosters and alumni donations. They don't lack for that, right? They don't. That is flowing in without much work, and that is something that is you have to do, and you have to get more of. You have to get more support from some of those same kind of places, to close whatever gap there is. But people really just have to believe in it. I mean, maybe there is a gap, but that gap gets closed really quick when you have one or two players decide, this is where I want to go. And I think the transfer portal is a way in which that's going to maybe happen more and more, because people are going to make those initial decisions to do what they think is flashy or whatnot. And if they don't like that experience, they're going to look for something maybe different. And that's where I think that may be a place where that gap starts to close.
You talk lightly about cost of attendance, and a lot of different, definitely smaller programs, they, for lack of a better term, take on those money games to, they really fund the program.
Right.
And the kids ask questions too.
Uh-huh.
They want to know cost of attendance.
Right.
Some of the kids don't come from a lot of money. Like, are we going to have something coming to us so that if I need to go home, I can go home? Basic, simple things. But it's also a delicate balance for you, because you're a young coach. If you take on too many of those guaranteed money games, it could kind of hurt your record.
Right.
So you're looking at the business of basketball in all ways. Do you think that taking on too many money games are a pro and a con? Do you think they put your job at jeopardy? So you can bring money into the program, but you may take wins, you may take losses, or more losses. Do you think you're judged by those losses? What do you think is the best, or what's the best blend of those things? And do you think that taking on more of those games, allows you an opportunity to bring in different type of players?
I think, for me, I think I try and have some sort of a balance. This year we have 3. Last year we had 3 as well. And moving forward, I'd like to have that or less, generally speaking. I think that if you have a AD who understands what's happening, then you're probably not judged by those, because they are a necessity in some ways. In some places, they are a requirement. And so it's very tough to require something of someone and then sort of be negatively judged once they meet your requirement. I think that they are tough for a couple of reasons, and there's ways in which you can spin it, right? So at Hampton, we would do ones that were money games, but we would just like go all over the country, and so, well, sometimes, one of my first years there, we did 5 games we were gone for 2 weeks. Yeah, we were gone for 2 weeks, 5 games, 4 states. It was just wild. It was Iowa State, Oregon, Washington State, Oregon, Texas, Texas, the one really close to Mexico. What would that be?
San Antonio.
Not San Antonio.
UTEP.
Yes, UTEP, and then Texas, and then University of Texas. So like we were just gang busted. I mean, it was like, whew, Lordy mercy, it was tough. But so it was, morale was kind of tough. That part was tough. But then but on the other hand, you're like, we just went to Oregon. We were just on the Oregon football field. We got to see the Oregon locker room. We were just at University of Texas. We just got, it kind of was back and forth. And so you just kind of have to be delicate, because it can be a morale thing. but I would say, like, for example, for me last year, we played Miami to open up the year. And so it can be a morale thing both ways because we lost by 10. And at some point it was a 3-point game within the last 5 minutes. So it was like, let's go,
Now
it was like,
there.
and, moral victories, but also kind of like victories, like it was also empowering. It kind of gave us a little bit of confidence. We're like, man, we could play with anybody, so it kind of, it all depends. I don't think that it's all or nothing, now if you're playing South Carolina, which at Hampton we did twice, like it might not be as much of a moral victory in the end. It's just true, but it might, you know what I mean? And it might be, for us last year, there were a couple games that were miserable and we had to drive far and I was like, we're never doing this again. And, but I got every single place we went, at a point you get tired of hearing it, but I guess it's better than the alternative. Every place we went, somebody ended up stopping me and was like, your team plays really hard, and I was like, okay, I guess, it's kind of like, I guess, great, but it could be like, y'all are trash, that could have been the response. But so you just kind of have to, and if you go into the game like Coach Six and like, I haven't seen anybody better than me yet, you oftentimes end up with a surprise, which, we did every time I was at Hampton. Every year we beat somebody, and it was always a surprise to everybody but him, and so I think it can build or it can break down, but I think that it's really, yeah, I'm sure you can get judged on it, but I think it's not all the way fair if you're judged on meeting requirements.
Mhm. Two more questions, Coach. We talk about a lot of good. Let's talk about the bad. Let's talk
Okay.
about
Okay.
this is my favorite question to ask.
Oh Lord.
So, as coaches, we know we all go through rough patches,
Hmm.
relationships with players,
Hmm.
relationships with administration,
Hmm.
relationship with coworkers,
Hmm.
once in your life.
Hmm.
Um, maybe you're not happy with your pay,
Hmm.
lots of different things. And there's lots of sacrifices that coaches make in our business that a lot of people may not even know. Um, Tell me a low point. One of those moments in which I'm in the fork of the road and I could go right, but that left is looking real good right now. Um, so, tell me about one of those and how you handled those situations.
Well, I will be completely honest with you. One of those moments was at the end of my first season at Hampton. Hampton was such an interesting experience for me because it was it was my first HBCU, and the environment around the university was different. I had a different personal experience than I'd ever had outside of work, and it was wonderful. But I told you about how UNC Asheville was tough. We really had to build the team up. It was grinding. I spent 3 years there, and then I went on to Hampton, where they had been, doing nothing but winning. Got a little bit of bump in my pay, and I was like, this is going to be a new experience. Going to a winning team, let's do it. And at the end of that season, we lost in the semifinals of the tournament in like really frustrating fashion. And UNC Asheville won the championship. And
I know
I
that's
was, I was like, I'm sorry, what just happened? Like, and I felt bad because I felt kind of selfish, but at the same time, I was human and I was like, no, seriously, what just happened? I just like trudged through the mud of these first 3 seasons, trying to build a team, going through the ups and downs of the team, recruiting my butt off. And then I leave, and that year we get it.
Then y'all want to cut the nets.
Right, like that year we want to figure it out. Really, right
That's how
then.
y'all moving.
That's what we're doing. And I was not in a good space. I felt like had I just made a terrible mistake, like I moved farther away from home, and it was just hard. It was hard to stomach that. It really, really was. And I was like, am I an idiot? Like, maybe I should just stop. This was dumb. Like, maybe I'm not, like, what am I doing? Really? Like, what am I doing? And then those two people I told you about at Asheville, Coach Mock and Coach Brown, both text me, in the midst of their celebration, because I watched, like in the midst of their celebration, they both individually text me and were like, you deserve a part of this net. And I just remember being like, okay, so this is what it is. This is how this works. Like I felt like, you always want to put in the work and you always want to see the result. You always want to be in it, right? You want to be in that result. But sometimes you put in the work and then you move on. But the work you put in is the reason why the result happened, and I was like, that's what it is. Because as a coach, one other thing you'll always hear, and it's always true, is whenever a coach is about to leave, they're always like, well, but I don't want to leave the kids. I don't want to leave this team. And what a seasoned veteran will always tell you is there's never a good time to leave the kids. There's never a good time to leave the team. But if it is time, it is time. And you're supposed to be exactly where you're supposed to be. And that was most definitely the case for me. So as much as I was, down in the dumps and felt like I had made the biggest mistake ever of my career, the next year we won a championship. The following year we lost in overtime, and we were one wide open 3 away from winning back-to-back, right? I met some of the most amazing people of my life in Hampton. I had some of the best experiences of my life in Hampton. And without Hampton, I don't have this job. I say at Asheville, I don't have a head coaching job at Bethune Cookman because I don't have that experience. I'm not able to walk into that space and into that interview and say, I understand what working at HBCU looks like. I understand the pride. I know what homecoming means. You know what I mean? I understand, but I also understand some of the struggles. I understand that there's times which you have to walk across the yard to go get something signed. I understand those elements. And so while, if you had asked me in that moment, I would have been like, I'm going back, like, switch it, go back. I want to go back. But then, so after the first year, I was like, this was the worst mistake ever. After the second year, I was like, this was the best thing ever. After the third year, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm finding all of myself. And after the fourth year, I was like, I've gotten everything I need from this, and I'll have to find something next. And the next thing was I got to go home. I got to go home for 2 years and be by my family during COVID. I was 30 minutes from my mom, and I was 45 minutes from my parents during the during the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people weren't. A lot of people were plane rides, which they couldn't take away from their family. If I had been in Hampton, that would have looked really, really different. COVID, for me, when I was at Hampton, that would have been so different. I don't know how I would have seen my family, but I had no problem. Even when I went like to the grocery store or something, and my mom was like, you can't come in my house. That's okay. I didn't go in her house. I still went to her house and I sat out on the porch and she brought me food. Like, I still got to see my family. And so, like, that's the thing about those hard times, that if you really understand and believe, and if you're really doing this, and you should be, you're always right where you're supposed to be. Always right where you're supposed to be, even if it is terrible. Like, even if it's terrible at the time, you're there for a reason. And it's so cliche, but My mom always says, what is for you is for you. And so the championships at Asheville weren't for me, but they were for people who I care a lot about, and they were for people who I helped put together, right? So I never want to take that away. Championships I won at Hampton were for me, but this job was for me because I got to Hampton. And so, to me, the bad is bad and it's tough, but I would venture to say that most coaches who have been through that hard and have come through the other end look back on it and go, well, because of that, I got to here, and then that's how I got to here,
Yeah.
and it all works out.
Yeah. So last one. So you hit me up, you say, Chris, come out and see us play. So I go down Daytona Beach. You guys are playing Georgia Southern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's going to be a great game. The pace is going to be good. The environment's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Cookman walks away with the win. You win by 7.
Okay.
Walking back to my car, and I get in the car, close the door, I put my key in the ignition. I'm thinking about Bethune Cookman. What do you want me to think? Bethune Cookman is this.
Is a fast-paced team who plays ridiculously aggressive defense. I want you to think we're a team that we get up and down the floor, and that it always seems to be that it's because of something they did on defense. Like somehow they disrupted something and they got an easy basket. Somehow they disrupted something and they got an advantage basket. I also want you to see a team that loves each other, that loves playing with each other, that is always positive, that is always watching out for each other, and that is always like moving in the same direction. That's what I want you to think of. That's what I want you to see when you see my team play. We just had a discussion about the whys today, and wanting to be a fast-paced team, wanting to be an aggressive team defensively, but then also wanting to be a team that trusts each other, that watches out for each other, has got each other's back, that is going to hold each other accountable, but because we're all going in the same direction, because we're all trying to get this same goal. That's what I want. That's what I want you to see.
Awesome. Okay. I'm long-winded. I know I'm a long-winded guy. This is your time. Any questions you have, any things you want to discuss? Because I've been guiding this, and I'm gonna put the wheel in your hands. So this thing I may have missed, you want to talk about favorite book, this or that question you may have for me, this is your time.
I think for me, my question just is what is something that first, thank you so much for contacting me and for allowing me to be on your podcast. I think it's awesome. Don't know how you found me per se or why I interest you, but I'm here for it, and I'll talk all day long. I know, but I just I'm sort of random. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I'm a nobody. See, I need to channel Coach 6 more. I told you that. Channel Coach 6 more. But anyways, so thank you so much for giving me the time. I'm long-winded too. I apologize for that. But I would say for me, you come from the EYBL background, from the AAU side. What are some things that maybe you've seen now that you're on this side that change your mind, or that you wish you knew, or that are just completely different from when you were on that other side of it?
Well, I think, Exodus is a big program. Like my final year there, we have, even the year before, but the final 2 years, we have Paris Clark, Arizona, Caroline Ducharme, UConn, Western, 2 Northwestern players.
Right.
UCLA, Dom Darius. You just loaded over the top. So, sometimes talent fixes everything,
Yes.
But, when you get to a different level, you really have to be, and I always have been, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a basketball nerd. I'm a synergy guy. I'm one of those type of guys. But you get to different levels, and I've always been taught this. from different coaches, mentors that I've had, but you learn the details matter so, 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 so much. We talked about that off the air. And you really have to buy into that. And one thing that I think that's really beautiful about, being able to coach Division 1 at a full-time level, I love skill development. I love all of it. And I want to be around kids that want
That's
to
my
learn.
favorite.
I,
That's my favorite
I'm
thing.
the guy that's chopping up boom, this. Oh, you're having a trouble with finishing. Let's teach you 2 or 3 different finishes. And like I love that side of it because I
Mm,
feel like at the level that I'm at right now, I can really be hands-on and help kids grow. There are very few things in this world, well, charges. I love to see a kid take a charge or a 5-second call. Lord knows, I think those are just incredible. But I will say this, there's nothing better than teaching a kid a move and seeing them use it in the game. That moment when they turn and look at you,
Best thing in the world.
they
Best
looking
thing in
right
the world.
into your soul.
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
it's all worth it.
Yep.
Everything I
You just wouldn't be like, never, like, I'm done. I don't care what happens the rest of the game. I'm good.
went
I'm good. Yes, that is the
done.
best moment as a coach.
You're done. Um, and that's why we do it.
Yeah.
I think that, those are a couple things that are kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
Again, coaching different levels, the level
Mm-hmm.
of intensity and the ability to be like hands-on with the kids more to Division 1 level. It's a year-round thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, I tell my kids all the time, one thing I always say is there's no place I'd rather be than here with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a beautiful thing, the game of basketball. It's given so much to so many different people.
Right.
They're blessed with the opportunity to get on the floor and give back. That sweat equity opportunity we have every single day. And I'm grateful to have that opportunity. I worked so hard to be here and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
Long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
No, no, that makes sense. That all makes sense. I think that's one thing as a head coach that I miss, and sometimes I still crave, and sometimes I still just do whenever I have a chance. I miss, you have to step back and kind of look at it as an umbrella a little bit more. But I miss some of that skill development. I love that one-on-one,
Mhm,
that those different finishes, those different moves,
mhm,
doing things that can help you in the game, but then also, even if it's just repetition so that in the game you now feel comfortable, you
mhm,
know, when you get in that space, when you get in that spot, when you get the ball there, whatever. And so I
mhm,
think you're exactly right. Skill development and having that opportunity to help people, watch people incrementally improve, literally get better at
mhm.
this game is awesome.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah, it was a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So,
Anything else, Coach?
I think that's all I got. You hit like all the spots. You hit all the points. There's nothing left to
I
add.
try to be ready, Coach. You got to be ready.
Yeah,
Yep,
gotta
yep, yep,
stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
yep, yep, yep. All right, Coach. Well, I would like to thank you for your time. It really meant a
No
lot,
problem.
and you have a good one.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
All right.